Good morning, gorgeous soul. Well, it's morning here on the Gold Coast, and I'm pretty sure it's a beautiful day. It's cloudy, it's still beautiful. Um, Beautiful in its own way, really. So, as those of you who might have seen on my Instagram stories, a conversation between, just a clip of a conversation between me and spirituality, was beautiful. Um, and that's just a real little excerpt of it. But basically, what came about was um, the last few days, and something that I noticed yesterday morning, particularly, was looking back over my Instagram feed and noticing how the color had simply changed from like what the normal color scheme is to like a black background. And it's not something like, it kind of had a bit of a darker tone to it, and I thought, well, that's interesting, considering I'm usually like, that's one of the things that you got to do is think about your Instagram feed, right? And I'm like, that's interesting. And then realized a few other things that were going on in my life. So for my cycle, my menstrual cycle, what's happening is I'm moving from my PMS, or my autumn stage, into my winter, which is the bleed, which is when you are calm, when you turn inwards, you rest, you're tender towards yourself, you're a lot gentler, that sort of thing. It's also the time where you start to like build up a lot of your reserve batteries for when, over the month when things do start to get crazy. It's like the most epic time for self-care, for self-love, for self-honoring, for turning inwards, for learning about yourself, for being like, for that self-compassion. Self-compassion is so important in this whole thing, and it's not leaning into your excuses. Self-compassion is the unconditional love and acceptance that you have for yourself, no matter what is going on in your life and no matter what you have done. It is pivotal that you are able to forgive yourself and show yourself self-compassion before you're actually able to show it to others. You will find yourself being able to let go of things easier. You're going to find yourself less judgmental of others as you lean into that self-love, that self-compassion, that ability to forgive yourself, your ability to even just accept your humanness is what's going to really help you in that. Also then honoring yourself, you're going to also notice as you lean into that self-compassion, that self-honor, just how much that actually helps you to set really healthy boundaries that aren't going to, how sometimes you set a boundary and you're like, it's way too harsh. It should not have been that harsh. But you're trying, right? You're trying to set these healthy boundaries. But the healthy boundaries are hard for you to understand if you don't also understand your body, and if you can't honor your own self first. Honoring your own self is where the healthy boundaries come from. They naturally come. And like I spoke about before, and I know you, spirituality, Hannah, you can totally attest to this, hey, with the setting healthy boundaries being easy after you lean into self-honor. Been there too far. Yeah, I think we all have. I definitely have. And this is one thing that sort of helped to calm that pendulum swing and come back to this place of temperance more often, and being able to be conscious about choosing your emotional state at a given time. Like, that's fucking empowerment. That's empowerment. Empowerment is not telling everyone else what they should and should not say around you. Empowerment is, no matter what is said around me, I'm safe to be able to lean into my own boundaries, lean into my own energetic boundaries, so that even if someone does say something that is super triggering, it kind of can bounce off me, because it's like, oh, I don't identify that as mine. That's a your thing. So I'm not taking that in. So this leaning into our self-honoring, connecting in with our bodies, figuring out what it is that we need in a moment, basically it led me to say, hey, I'm noticing that I'm in a winter. And it happened with a few of my friends yesterday. And I said, I need to float. I just need to float. And the beautiful beautiful, beautiful people in my life, they understood that and honored that for me. And Kate, you are one of those beautiful people too. Thank you for honoring that with me. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, and I honor yours. And as yours also, Hannah, thank you for honoring that for me and with me. And last night was an end of a cycle. It was not comfortable. And I had a conversation with someone very special to me that I had to initiate into a new way of being. And with that came, and I'm not going to go into all of it, and yes, it is vague, and that's okay, because I'm allowed to have some things to me also. This all stemmed from Thursday night, me having a panic attack, honestly. I had a major panic attack on Thursday night, and I have not had a panic attack in years. Since, I think it was 2018 when I had a panic attack last. And it was terrifying. I was in the bath, and just all of everything of what's going on and life and COVID and everything. It's all so stressful, right? And compulsory masks have just been brought in, mandatory masks have just been brought in to Brisbane, and that's really confronting, and it's so confronting to my children, especially those of us who suffer with anxiety and panic attacks and claustrophobia. Growing up with 7 brothers and having a tickle attack while you're in a sleeping bag will bring on claustrophobia. Just saying. That's a real fear, by the way. It doesn't leave you very easily. So, lots of things going on, so much anxiety. Had my first panic attack in fucking years. It was terrifying. I hated it. But then I realized where I was. I'm like, okay, I know what's happening right now to me. This type of thing used to happen several times a week at one stage in my life. Me having panic attacks, me having these major anxiety attacks. Like, with everything going on as a single mum, like going through like the divorce stuff, leaving church, setting up boundaries around that, working in an organization who like was just toxic at the time, and that was not actually the network marketing company. That was an organization that I was with kinesiology, and decided to step away from that because I found that culture super toxic. And then just feeling like I was so far out of control led me to these panic attacks. And that's what led me to this panic attack again on Thursday night. This time I decided to surrender to it. I fucking surrendered to this panic attack in the fucking bath. But because I also trusted my intuition to only run the bath like a third of the way up, I was like, okay. I also knew I was safe enough to fall into the panic attack. I was in a safe space. I analyzed that. I allowed myself to. Then I allowed my body to do what it wanted effectively. And I sobbed, and I was shaking, and it was terrifying. It was hard to breathe. I struggled to maintain my mind, so I let my mind go. I let my mind go to wherever it wanted. Effectively, I saw this, and I'm not saying that every single panic attack was like this. I'm just saying this is something that I identified for myself. And I'm encouraging everyone to tap into their own bodies and analyze for themselves what feels right for you. Empowerment. It's not being told from the outside. It's being told from the inside. Inner empowerment. Embodied empowerment. I leaned into it, and what it told me was, this is your ego chucking a tantrum because you haven't been allowing it to speak loud enough. You haven't been listening. So I'm like, okay, I'll listen. I'll frickin' listen. So effectively, this panic attack or ego tantrum, which I've realized was probably more appropriate for me than anything. I allowed it to go, and I can see all the places where I've completely judged myself, and like just that fear of hurting others as well, and the pain that you might potentially cause others by your choices. It's not comfortable. I've had to let go of a few really significant relationships to me over the last month, and it's been really, really very difficult. It's been difficult too because I've also felt the initiation into making decisions based on my heart and a knowingness inside, and honoring that instead of reason, which is basically explaining for everyone else. It's not for me necessarily, reason. If you have an inner knowing, you fucking know. You don't need all the reasons to know. We get caught up in the reasons. The reasons are all up here. And yeah, sometimes reason is important. But when you're making some life decisions and it's like that knowing, sometimes forcing the reason makes you confused about what it is that you already kind of feel on the inside. And that's what keeps us stuck. The not honoring it. And it's almost like we have to get back to a place of just absolutely honoring it in order for us to be able to then understand it. That's what it's starting to feel like now. So it's not a matter of me going, oh, I get this feeling. Why do I get this feeling? Well, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. And now it's like, I've got this feeling. I know what I need to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask for as much grace to be a human as I do this. And I'm going to allow others to be human while I also do this. But I'm also going to be honoring myself, because that's the most important person in my life. The most important person in my life is me. No one else is here specifically to look after me. No one's here specifically to look after you. Not even your parents. So you leaning into you and honoring you and trusting that your heart is bringing you to a place of your ultimate happiness. That is self-honor. It is also the most loving thing you can do for any other person. What space was it that I was taking up in other people's lives, in those significant relationships, that they could then be filling with people who would fill their highest good? If it's not in my highest good, it can't be in their highest good either. So leaning into that and allowing that to just land as it does, without forcing, without even having to make reasons, because with the reasons come judgment, and the judgment then gets deflected onto other people. And that's where when relationships end, when friendships end, when, even business things end, there can be this expectation of, well, someone has to be wrong because there's an ending to this. Because we've been taught that endings are bad. Endings aren't bad. Like, death is just as much a part of life as birth is. It is inevitable the moment that we are born, that we die. There is ends, there's also continuance, and that is so beautiful. The whole dance, the whole paradox of being able to exist in life whilst also fully and completely accepting and even valuing death. This is the winter. I naturally put on dark clothes because I feel as though there is an end to a previous self, to a previous way of doing things. Now, I actually had the feeling to jump on and live while I was going through my panic attack. But because it was an ego tantrum, my ego's like, fuck that, keep this for yourself. And you know what? Even this other part of me is like, you know what? You're given intuition. You get to choose whether you follow it or not. And if you're going to lean into your ego, at least fucking choose that and don't blame it on anyone else. Yes, some things that have gone on in my life over the last several months have been, You could call them traumatic. I haven't gotten trauma from them though, because of the way I've approached it, because of the healing that I've done on myself in the past, because of all of the research that I've done and the work that I've done with people. I know that I can heal and not have to break. I don't have to even necessarily go through trauma that is going to devastate me and take me out like it has in the past. Now I go through trauma, and the last few months is freaking evidence of this. Going through things that can be labeled very traumatic. Everyone experiences trauma differently, absolutely. But it is also dependent on how you treat your trauma that you already have. If you are going to lean into like these triggers and being able to just set up all of this cotton wool around you so that you're not triggered, it's only going to make you less resilient to more trauma in the future. Being able to sit with difficult and uncomfortable feelings literally leads you through this scale of having to learn through pain and discomfort and hurt, and onto learning through pleasure and enjoyment and happiness, right? So it's a learning journey. You start somewhere. You don't automatically switch over to, oh, now I'm learning through healing. Now I'm learning through pleasure, right? And I know you look at my Instagram and you're like, oh, well, she's got all this cool stuff going on. Yeah, but I also really try and stay as transparent as possible. And you'll probably see more of my transparency, my little crazy, quirky personality in my stories. And here on my, thread, whatever the frick you call it, I want to just give you as much teaching as possible. Always learning things, Jessie. I missed you yesterday. I'm sorry I didn't get to see you. But yeah, the way you approach your healing is really going to show you how and where the possibilities are in the future of being able to approach your healing also. And that's not to say that pain is bad. Pain is so important. The pain is there because that brings you the attention to the thing straight away, right? If something is hurting, you're like, whoa, oh, I see that. That freaking hurts. What the fuck is that about? How do I get that gone? And then we try what we can to get it gone as fast as possible and to hide it and to push it away. But it's the allowing yourself to feel it and feel whatever you're feeling in a moment that literally helps it to move through your body. Your body is a conduit of energy. So the emotions are never going to just stay there. It's like lightning doesn't just stay in the rod, in that lightning rod. It tries to ground as fast as possible. That's what it's doing. These emotions are doing the same thing. They're trying to ground as fast as possible. But if you stop them and you block them, they're going to stay in your body, feeling your feelings without the judgment, without leaning into the emotions of it, without perpetuating it more. The story and the drama is where the pain is perpetuated, and you can cause yourself more trauma leaning into the story of all of it than leaning into the feeling of it, right? The feeling is where it is. The feeling is what heals it. Letting that go through your body and allowing it to then pass out, and then going, and I'm still okay. I didn't die from the feeling of it. It leads to this other level of self-trust you would not believe. If you are able to sit with your feelings, you will be more compassionate to yourself. You will be more honoring of yourself. You will also find yourself less affected by things others do. When you are able to sit with your feelings. And this comes with a level of self-awareness. It absolutely does. But it's available to you. So these cycles, when you feel like things are ending for you, when you feel like shit's hitting the fan and you feel like really pulling away and going inside your winter, I'm usually this light, bubbly, but I'm leaning into the dark, the quieter, the pulled away. last night, so yesterday afternoon felt like a major end of a huge cycle. And as that cycle ended, I started to bleed, like immediately at the end of a conversation. And that to me was significant because once I realized the season I was in my winter, and I knew that in a physical sense I was in a winter, but I also know in an emotional sense I'm in a winter also. And I'll do a post about that. It's not something I'm going to be doing right here, right now. But then also leaning into the winter for my business too. And that was the conversation today, was like leading on from last week. If any of you guys jumped on and saw my little Katie reel about my little Katie. I did do a reel. I was halfway through doing a podcast, which I might actually finish. I'm going to go back and have a listen to that audio. I might end up putting it on the podcast. It's kind of hilarious. It's ridiculous. But basically my little Katie had a back attack and just was like, you need to spend more time with me than worrying about work and worrying about all these other things going on in life. You need to be like, what about me? Like, you're still not giving enough to me, even though I really felt like now more than ever I've given to myself, and I'm totally conscious of like, holy shit, what if I'm becoming narcissistic because I'm so focused on this self-improvement? But it's just so foreign to me. And whenever you're onto something really good, there's usually this little shadow that says, yeah, but maybe it's too good for you. It's like at every single little level you get to, there's a book called The Big Leap, I think. I can't remember who wrote it. Gay someone. And it's not even here. It's in my room because I've been reading it. But basically, it's like an upper level limit. Every time you get to an awesome spot in your life, it's like, yeah, but I don't think I can experience life any better than this. And it's literally allowing yourself more pleasure that ends up pushing through that limit, and then you break through it, and then you've got this new baseline of enjoyment that's just life. And then inevitably, because we all do, we're literally designed to change. Life is designed to change. It's our little egos that are terrified of change. And that's where the whole, really, are you worthy of all of that? Are you really sure? Because ego doesn't like to change. It's like, well, I know I'm going to need to do new things on another level. I know that's going to need to be maintained in a certain way. Like, do I really want that? But then your psyche, your soul, you're just like, actually, yeah, I really do want that because I'm really sick of worrying about this thing or that thing, or I'm sick of having this conversation now. It's like, okay, if you're sick of that conversation, you get to choose how you're going to level up so that you don't have to have that conversation anymore, right? You don't have to have that experience anymore. And these experiences and these patterns that you start to see in your life, they start showing up and you're like, okay, I'm starting to see a pattern here around this. And we can call them habits, but basically if life starts showing you patterns, glitch in the matrix, right? That the patterns are going to show you what it is that you need to change before the pain does. It's the patterns that lead to the pain eventually, right? So you'll see that, maybe a pattern of having a couple of drinks a night is not an issue for you straight up. But if you continue that over several months, that might end up leading to pain in some way. It'll certainly hurt your liver. So you can kind of see how it's not just the once-off things, but it's when things start showing up in a particular pattern for you that you really want to start paying attention, because those are the things that you're going to really want to start changing around. Anyway, I could literally just talk forever. Basically, notice where you are right now. Have a look at how that might correlate with the seasons. Have a look at where you are in your cycle right now. And have a look at how your cycle also mends up with the seasons. Week 1 is usually your winter, when you bleed. Week 2 usually is your spring, which is when you're starting to feel like cleaning and nesting. Week 3 is summer. I call this my hungry stage. It's when you're active, you're doing, you're creative, you've got the energy. And it also starts to come into the week 4, which is when you don't put up with bullshit, when your filters are a lot lower. So some people call this PMSing. I call it you just have more of a bullshit sensor. So that's when things in your life that are not working are showing up louder for you. They're showing up louder, and you also have the energy to be able to do something about it. So you can take some practical action here. This is the part where you usually have a decent amount of energy, but you're using it all being angry, right? You can harness that energy, that super built up energy, which it starts coming out in our, when we're into our normal, like everyday cycles, like the month calendar cycles. If we are still running our lives by a calendar cycle, which is extremely patriarchal, by the way, just saying, like, we are going to be burnt out if we are expecting ourselves to show up in the same way every day. Absolutely will. You'll feel like you were going crazy because you were literally working against your body. As you lean into your body, you are going to notice that it exists in times and seasons. Lean into those times and seasons, and your life will be so much smoother for it. You try and work against it and say, no, this is how it should be. You prioritize productivity and advancement. And if you still consider rest to be a luxury, you are playing by patriarchal rules, my friend. It is the old way. The old way is to just push through, even though it's hard, even though you're in pain, even though you're bleeding. Just plug it up and keep going. Old way. Honoring, sitting with, okay, what is it that I need in this moment? What is it that I need? What is it my body needs? Not like, should I stuff my face with a heap of chocolate? Sometimes your soul needs that. And it's so blessed and sacred and pure. And sometimes it's like, I need to not eat. So that's what Friday was for me. Friday? No, that was yesterday. Thursday. Didn't eat. I just couldn't eat. I just didn't want, I wasn't hungry, but I also was just conscious of, I just needed to remember how my body feels without food. My body just wanted to feel like that, so I let it. And that led to a whole shit ton of synchronicities happening because I lent into that. And then Thursday night was a major meditation and a late night. And this last week, I've been working so much and I've been loving it because I've been completely in my passion. But when I'm in my passion, sometimes I forget my body. And so leaning into the honoring of my body over the last few days and just the pulling away and allowing myself this winter and time to rest, like that then showed Hannah, Spirituality, because she was hearing a lot of this conversation of me, the same thing. And because I'm allowing myself to do this, you know, I see, Kate, I know that you're doing the same thing today. And I love that. You are a major example for the people in your life. How you show up for yourself will give them permission for how to show up for themselves. So as we heal ourselves, we are healing others. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing, really. All of us healing together, which is why I love having those group containers, because there is so much healing that happens when we heal as a community. And I do feel a sense of coming out of my winter. I know that that's inevitable. Winter doesn't stay. The seasons don't stay. The beauty of cycles is that they change. And if the beauty of cycles is that they change, then maybe change is beautiful. And I know for me, I've started to see how beautiful change is. You guys are so incredible. I am sending so much love and adoration to each of you who I know are on this journey. It isn't easy. I know that it's not always easy. But once you learn how to sink into ease, it can become easy. And that change is welcome too. I'm sending you so much love. I hope you have an incredible weekend and sink into your body even deeper. So much love. Bye.